Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of The Democratic View. And with me today, I have an old friend who wears a lot of hats, and her name is Kathleen Cunningham. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me,
good.
Phyllis. Good to see you.
And we always have so much to talk about.
It's hard to pin down one topic, really. They
Yes.
just
Well,
keep-
let's start with a favorite one, which is your Quiet Skies work.
Okay. Well, we're in a period of exaltation that we have a town board that will embrace the Quiet Skies principles as of January 1st. Kathy Burke-Gonzalez and Larry Cantwell have both subscribed to this Quiet Skies principles that a sound financial plan for the airport will reveal whether or not it's actually important to take FAA funding. And that was a hard-won battle, and we're very excited about that. We're grateful to the community and feel as though Councilman Stanzio's defeat at the polls was really, in effect, a public referendum on the current town board's airport noise policy, because he was very outspoken in his desire to re-encumber the town with another 20-year.
Much to his chagrin, I might add.
Yes, I know, I know. Well, you know, everybody does good work. He did good work in the deer management program. I'll give him that. I think he's, you know, we don't all have to agree on everything, but his fairly dramatic position on the airport, I think, really was his undoing, and I feel as though the voters of the town spoke to the issue when they did not return him to office.
Well, I agree. I believe that that there were a couple of things that really did him in, and certainly the airport was primary.
Right.
You know.
So we're a little nervous about the lame duck period. We have until now, between now and December 31st, to make sure the current majority does not approve another contract with the FAA before the new administration is seated. And there's a public hearing this Thursday, day after tomorrow. No, today's Monday. Thursday, 21st of November. I'm not sure when this will air, but the capital improvement plan for the airport there's a public hearing for that this Thursday. So we're a little apprehensive about how that'll go and whether we'll escape unscathed into the new year. So
and Lord knows they're not in a generous mood.
No, and the walk-on resolutions have been a little disconcerting, to put it mildly, because no one is prepared to discuss them. And the hearing for this capital improvement plan was brought to the board in a walk-on resolution, as were other expenses for the airport, for some work performed and some work yet to be performed that no one on the town board, there were no work products available to examine. And I have to say, I've been in there, I don't know, a couple times a month for the last 3 or 4 months asking for those work products, asking for the noise studies. Whether the town takes FAA funding or not, they need noise studies that are actual measurements in the field. They can't be extrapolated figures, which is what the current noise consultant, Harris, Miller & Hansen, is using to project noise impacts.
Can't you have a Freedom of Information request?
Yes, you can, but they're very slow to respond to that. It's really hard to get it.
Well, I thought that was the law.
Well, it is the law, but there's no time frame. The law doesn't say you have to do it within X number of days. They must give it to you, but it's, and in truth, you know, this is the town clerk. Carol Brennan and Fred Overton are running themselves ragged over there, and some of this information isn't that easy to come up with, especially if it's been archived for a period of time. So I suspect there are other people that have it that could make it easier for us. But
I wonder who.
Right. But so that's been a little frustrating, and it makes it difficult for the public to participate in a meaningful discussion because you don't really have the information to review and engage in.
It even makes it difficult for the council
Yes, it
people
makes you for elected
to
officials to participate. Exactly.
participate without the information and with a walk-on resolution.
Right,
We-
right, that's true.
yeah.
So that's been a little unsettling, and I'm concerned also about the zoning change proposed for the for Amagansett for that 555 property. I don't think it's legal. I don't think it's a legal process they're following. Certainly goes against all the recommendations of the comprehensive plan. And in fact, the special exemptions that exist for multiple unit housing of that sort for seniors is not meant for luxury apartments. It's meant not at market value. It's supposed to be below market value. So it kind of subverts the law in every, or the intent of the comp plan. I can't say it subverts the law because I don't know that well. It subverts the intent of the comp plan pretty profoundly to create, an opportunity for building there. And it's going to change the character of the downtown Amagansett a lot.
It's going to change the character of East Hampton. I mean, the one thing we have been trying to do is to hold back Nassau County. We don't want to be Nassau County. We don't want big box stores. We don't want this kind of development. We want to remain an area that has a rural character. And I can see it even creeping up into Southampton. It begins to look a little bit decayed, I call it, and I really fear this particular thing that's only going to make one group of people rich.
Right. I agree with you, and we've been lucky in East Hampton. East Hampton was always a leader in terms of protecting agricultural lands, buying development rights to preserve certain tracts of land from development, but allowing farmers to still farm on them, or scenic overlays, easements, or a creative toolbox to permit people to benefit from their property, which is their right as property owners, but to work with the community to maintain a certain quality of vista and character of the community, as you point out. But this is a different animal, and that Principi property has been it's been in play for a really long time. So
Yes,
it's
indeed.
unfortunate to see. There was an opportunity, I think, some years ago for it to go to affordable housing, but for one reason or another, the plan that was put forward was rejected. And I don't remember the details on that, but it's a shame that it's been sold and now marketed like this, because this is how people make money. It is, it is a very lucrative deal for the developers, because those units will sell. We know that.
Yes, well, and also, the point is that it really does not add to the economy here.
No, it doesn't.
This place is going to have pools, going to have a restaurant, going to have a spa and a gym. So it's not going to be anything that is going to create a lot of business in the town.
Right.
It's going to be rather self-contained.
Right.
And it will be people who will come and buy them and pay a lot of money and take advantage of it and then walk away. And meanwhile, also, things like septic systems.
Yeah, that's a really big concern.
Yeah.
I don't know if they are planning a wastewater treatment plant for that. I think they might have been, but I haven't read the plan. But those are the kinds of things that our community is going to have to investigate anyway.
Wastewater treatment, still and all, where's it going to go?
Yeah.
I don't care whether you have a wastewater treatment or not. It still has to go somewhere unless they're going to be trucking it to Bergen Point.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
on-site, they have on-site wastewater treatment units these days. In fact, you can get little ones to put, in single separate homes now. They're not inexpensive. They're in the $30,000 range for a single family unit, but at some point, particularly in Suffolk County, because of the the corruption of our drinking water and the aquifer.
Two aquifers there are.
Right. Because of the terrific increase, especially in nitrogen loading in the Magathie, which is the deepest one. And that measurement, by the way, is 30 years old, because it takes 30 years for that.
That's right.
That's tough to get down there and be
To
measured.
percolate, yes, indeed.
So the percolation rate is something that people must consider. And I know Southampton has introduced a program. There's an incentive program there for people to replace some of their septic with these on-site septic
You know,
units.
it's amazing, because what you were saying before about East Hampton always having been in the forefront of this environmental issues, which is one of the reasons I came here.
Right.
I stayed here because my family was in Watermill, and I really should have been going there. But my daughter is in Hampton Bays, but it was because they said to me, "Oh, in East Hampton, you can't do things because East Hampton is very strict." And I thought, hey,
That's
that's
the place
what I
for
want.
me.
That's what I want. I want strict.
Right.
And it's certainly, that has changed.
Right.
And environment is way down in the bottom of concerns, and that upsets me a great deal. And I can't wait for this study that is being done on comprehensive water, wastewater, and we see where we actually are. And I'm hoping that they'll turn around and they'll say, hey, like they did with the oil tanks, we'll give you a tax write-off or something like that.
Some kind of an incentive, right?
Yeah, some kind of an incentive to get to a better system, and I will be the first one to apply.
Great.
But,
Well, I hope that, I think that there's no question that will be the result of the study. That I forget, there's some outrageous number of wells in Suffolk County. I think it's over 50% of all households in Suffolk County have private wells and private septic, some of which are just holes in the ground. They're not even really.
I'm sure that's what I must have,
because
mine
many of the existing housing stock is so old, and the septic dates back to that.
Right.
And there's no incentive to upgrade it until the thing fails, as any homeowner will tell you. You don't want to even be involved in such a project unless it's absolutely
I have no
necessary.
problems. Whatever's there, I have no idea what, it never bothered me.
If it ain't
but
broke,
in the meantime,
don't fix it. Right.
But in the meantime, I know I have to do something.
Right. Well,
So
because you're a responsible citizen, and one of the big failures, in my view, of even our educational system as a community that's dependent upon a sole source aquifer for its water, and a coastal community, is that our kids don't leave school knowing this. They don't know where the water comes from, because it comes from the tap. Just turn on where's the water come from? It comes from the tap. There's no understanding of the relationship that whatever we put in the ground, it just ends up in our drinking water. And people just don't get that. I don't know why, but they don't. It's unique to places like Long Island that have sole source aquifers. Other communities have reservoirs and catch basins and so forth, because they're not lucky enough to have this glacial water supply, which is ancient and pure. And that should really inform our policy decisions and our zoning code and what we do expect of our communities in terms of development. Whenever the economy takes a plunge, the environment suffers for that reason, because people assume the shortcut to economic health is to abandon the environmental guiding tools that we have, principles that we have to encourage the economy to grow. And the quick fix does work in the short term economically, but in the long term, and that bill is coming due now, as we are examining our water and finding that there are all kinds of pollutants. And we look at our still waters like Hook Pond and Georgica Pond that are dying. They're dying, these surface water ponds, because of the runoff and because of we're channeling a lot of our street water. Our stormwater runoff goes right into those beautiful, pristine, ponds that are part of our estuary. They're the nursery of the bay. That's where the eelgrass grows, and the whole cycle of life for the marine environment and fisheries begins there. So it's just, people are, I don't understand why that's even happening. Because they're
don't, I have
poisoned.
to, I think you're quite right. I think we have to lay it at the feet of the educators, being an educator myself. I mean, and I was a science teacher in one phase of my long teaching career. And it is true that people are not aware of how fragile the earth is, how everything you do will have consequences in the scheme of things. I mean, I've seen in my own neighborhood trees cut down.
Right.
Now, I must admit, I cut down about 5 trees to put solar panels up. I had to clear
It's
it.
a fair trade.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I wanted to do my part, as we both drive Priuses
Right,
as well.
right.
And I did do that. I took 5 trees down. But, you know, trees are very important.
They are.
They are what gives us oxygen, you know, and we need to have them. We need birds. People were talking about birds. I mean, people don't realize all of these things are in their own niche for the health of the earth. And we have to start, and it's not enough to say, well, they don't understand it. You know, the kids coming out of school don't understand that. I say, then there's something wrong.
Yeah, no, there's definitely, and these are principles that children can learn as youngsters. They don't.
Yes.
They can be elementary school age and learn these things. So I think it's up to each community. I mean, obviously, it would be better if it was a farther reaching initiative, but at least in our community in East Hampton, we should be able to educate our children and our families about that. We have the additional problem of a big influx of a summer population who are people who are uneducated, and we often deal with the impacts of that sudden burst of population. But all that can be managed if there's a will. You know, if there's a will, there's way.
Well, it is called political will because, you know, having been an administrator in a school building, I know that what the people at the top think and feel and have knowledge about and a vision for,
Right.
key word,
Right.
vision, that percolates down
Right.
into the building and
Right.
into the town and into the community. And that's very important. I mean, you take, you were talking about the influx of people. I mean, we certainly know that we have to do something about transportation here.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that you were one of the people who was very instrumental in the 5-town transportation plan.
Right. Right. Well, the 5-Town Rural Transit Group grew out of a program called the Sustainable East End Development Strategies, which was a state and federally funded study that inexplicably, to my way of thinking, explored for the first time land use and transportation needs. Somehow land use in the schools of planning was isolated from transportation, which, you know, I mean, any right-thinking person would say, well,
Guess
how
they
is that
never heard
possible?
this. They never heard
Right.
the saying, location, location, location.
Right, good point. But to my surprise, the way communities were planning, especially in New York State, for any kind of development, housing, commercial uses, retail space, the idea of how you would get in and out of there and the impact on the transportation system that those developments would cause was never factored in. So this was supposed to be revolutionary. This is about 10 years ago probably now. It might be even longer. Goodness. And that went on. That, carried on for quite some time. But a group of us that were from the 5 East End towns came to the conclusion that what we all did agree on was we have railroad tracks and we have some roads. We have an infrastructure that exists. Why don't we try to at least expand public transportation with the assets we have. Now, of course, any right-thinking person knows that, 3 trains a day from the MTA is not enough to build a transportation system around. So we proposed a rail and bus shuttle, small rail car, maybe 2 cars that would run at 1-hour intervals, 1-hour headways, met by smaller buses at various places, train stations and so forth, and other stops that made sense for density of population, particularly in Springs. There's a lot of big population in Springs that could really use a public transportation option. And we developed a plan. We worked very closely with Assemblyman Fred Thiel. He had long been a proponent of a very similar approach, and he was able to help us get some funding that allowed us to conduct a survey, which was done. We had an excellent survey done by Appel Research, who was up in Niskayuna, New York. But we had a lot of positive feedback from the 5 East End towns, and also the Latino community. We made sure to canvass the Spanish-speaking residents, because so many of them are also dependent on public transportation. And everybody said, yeah, it's a great idea, let's do it. And of course, we had to convince the MTA, and that's the big stumbling block. And we really had gained a lot of ground on that. And in 2009, launched, made a big presentation after the USDOT Volpe Center, which is a federally funded transportation organization, actually examined and analyzed our proposal and found it would be doable. But then that was when the bottom fell out of the economy, so there weren't some of the funding sources that we had projected to help us with a lot of the capital expenses, because it was capital intensive. There were a lot of, there was equipment to buy and that kind of thing.
Sure.
So we weren't really able to launch it then. And since then, we've had a couple of smaller victories in improving service with the Suffolk County bus service. We got Sunday and holiday service. That was a big deal. We worked very hard with Jay Schneiderman to do that. 2 of our members are dependent on buses. A lot of people don't realize how many people don't drive cars for a whole host of reasons. It's not just kids who are underage that need to get to the soccer game or something, or elderly people who don't want to keep a car any longer, or maybe don't want to drive, apart from handicapped folks who can't drive and never were able to drive, and a whole host of other reasons. So we were very hopeful about that. Recently, the MTA, through Assemblyman Thiel's efforts, to his great credit, was able to get into the 2014 budget a line item to purchase some smaller diesel multiple units, which is what they call them, DMUs, to begin a smaller shuttle service on the North Fork, unfortunately, not on the South Fork, thinking they could try something there in the off-season with the wineries and so forth to see if that would work, going between hamlets. But right now, we can't seem to find a vendor that can sell us these things. The Colorado Rail Car, which was the company that was producing these things, has gone out of business, and its assets were sold to another company.
Oh dear.
I can't remember the name of it, and there are other regulations that we have to buy things that are made in the United States if it's a federally funded program. I don't know. There's some other requirements that I haven't been able to suss out, but we're still having a conversation with Helena Williams, who's the head of the MTA, and she's been reasonably she's been favorably disposed toward the idea, even with the limits in the MTA's budget, which of course is affected by the economy also.
We because living in the Springs, and we do have this housing difficulty, which is many people living in very crowded conditions and really being abused, because most of them pay very high rents for very little.
Right.
And many times they're with absentee landlords.
Right.
And almost in a dangerous situation, I might add. And that's how I know about this, because we did ask you to come and
Right.
tell us all about it. And I really wish that this would continue on. I mean, maybe now when you are at the point where the airport has sort of, you listening, God? Where the airport really sort of dies down and we have a certain amount of comfort and safety, knowing that it's not going to be something that's going to be, for the rich people to,
Right.
to use
Right.
and to use and abuse us.
Right.
That maybe this is something that could have some effort from
Right.
your part, because I really think it's a very worthwhile one.
Right.
And I would hope that it would be able to get off the ground
Right.
and really begin to be something that people could count on.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem, is you have to have something that's reliable. And buses, as you know, are a little harder to depend on in terms of timing, especially here in summer when they're competing on the same roadways as the cars are, which is why, at least for the east-west transportation, we really were hoping for trains, because they don't suffer
No,
those same...
definitely you have to have
they don't
trains
suffer the same.
as part of it.
Right,
But,
right, they're not,
no,
yeah.
you-
So anyway, but that's unclear at this point. We're not sure what the MTA is going to be able to offer us, because they're not our tracks at this point.
But they do get a large amount of money from us.
They get an insulting amount of money. We
Yes.
are what is called a donor region. And when we did our first estimates, which are admittedly almost 10 years ago, it was almost $60 million a year in different kinds, many different areas, your cell phone tax, real estate tax, that's transfer tax that's on when people sell land. But
Well, we will have to talk about this more at another
Okay.
time. Maybe the next time you come back, you can give us some information about how far you've been able to get with this thing.
Okay.
I mean, and we're hopefully with a more receptive town board,
Okie dokie.
we'll do it.
All right, thanks for having me, Phyllis.
Phil, it was my pleasure.